tech as well as F&B business ecosystem. I've also spoken to Michael in the past. He's a lovely partnerships expert. I sincerely feel that you guys will learn a lot from him. He has a very interactive workshop today. Michael is also the author of the highly regarded book, Today's Superpower, Building Networks, 7 Mindset Principles to Thrive in a Fast-Changing World. It's published by New Degree Press and available on Amazon in audiobook, paperback, hardback, and on Kindle. Michael Mangold is the Head of Partnerships, EMEA, at Cyberprotonics, with previous experience in corporate venture builders, accelerators, and incubators in top startup hubs like Silicon Valley and Berlin. Michael excels in forming strategic partnerships, building thriving ecosystems, and fostering collaboration among multiple stakeholders to drive innovation and solve complex problems. A strong advocate for the venture clienting model, Michael deeply understands how startups can effectively engage with large corporations to secure valuable deals. As a renowned author and academic expert, Michael is passionate about sharing insights on these topics. Connect with Michael on various platforms to explore how he can innovate with you together. A big round of applause for Michael.
Hello, hello. So I have the pleasure to close this wonderful day, and I hope we're gonna make it engaging, energizing, so we are not, finishing on a sleepy mode after all this interaction of the day. I'm talking today about my favorite topic, building networks, partnerships, and ecosystem, and I hope you will find the value in this. As it was mentioned in introduction, and sorry for the we had to change some format last minute. I've been in different roles, from big corporation such as Bayer in San Francisco to a Japanese company called Itera, as well as startups. And I've seen a lot of different expectations from different stakeholders, and I will share my experience, what it takes to actually build partnerships. I published this book, as mentioned as well, and what I meant in this book, and I won't talk about it today, this is just a quick picture to show you, is that in today's world, ideas comes from everywhere, but with a strong network supported by research and data, we actually get access to novel ideas, right? To get the feedback from a lot of stakeholders, resources, and people. But today we'll talk about business partnerships, and that's the topic. So as I mentioned, for 3.5 years, I was at Itera. It's a Japanese company with 16,000 employees, and I built an ecosystem for them, working with startups, working for universities, working with VCs, working with government, to actually gather insights, how can we collaborate. We built multiple partnerships with a few of the startups, including aquaculture companies. And with that, I gather experience. We won't do this because I don't have my computer next to me. But my question to you is, who is a founder or part of a startup? Raise your hand. We have 1, we have 2, 3, 4. Got it. Who is from the corporate world, big companies? Raise your hand. No corporates? Who is from the VC world? Raise your hand. 1, woo. We have 2. Who is from the academia? Academia? No one? Here we go, 1. And from the government? Anyone? Got it. So this is basically what we mean by startup ecosystem, right? When we think about entrepreneurs, and there is a lot of research, this is a graphic from Techstars. Entrepreneurs are not only need money from VCs, this is just one stakeholders. To succeed, you have to surround yourself with all these stakeholders, right? We are talking about service providers such as marketing, such as legal. We need to form bonds with the governments, maybe do some lobbying. We need to understand how we can engage large corporations, but also have access to infrastructure depending on the technology. And that's really what an entrepreneur should think about. How am I going to build this? What are my priorities? And do that in a strategic way. And so I'm going to start with a little presentation on some data, what's going on in the world today, starting by the old versus the new economy. I'm going to talk about best practices for alliances and partnerships, and then we're going to make it in a very interactive way. This is a picture which I like to present. This is a person in 800s, and he was knocking on the door with a stick. What this man was doing was waking up the factory workers to go in the factory in England. Back then we didn't have a watch. And what this meant is that we invented working hours. We invented weekends. They didn't exist. We invented, contracts for companies to have employees and so on. Everything was human invented. And so we should not take anything from normal or granted, and we should challenge the way society is working today. We invented everything. And that's why what worked in the past doesn't necessarily work today. And the same in innovation. From the 50s to the year 2000, companies were inventing by themselves. They had R&D department, they put billions of dollars, they invented, and so on. But because of the speed of technologies, because of internet and the rise of startups all around the world, the facility to have money create startups, right? We have more competition. The innovation comes from everywhere. And last but not least, the stakeholder economy, which is that companies not only have to please shareholders, which was really basic principles 20 years ago. Now we need to please our supplier. We need to make sure our communities are positively impacted. We need to report our carbon footprint. And all of these factors means that to fulfill all these problems an organization can have, you need to collaborate. And so I really believe that when we talk about innovation, it's a combination of three things. Not only tools, right? Like, for instance, technical innovation, etc. But you need the networks to implement it and the mindset to do so. And collaboration is here so you can win. This is a buzzy slide. Don't get afraid. I'm just going to explain it very quick. What we saw in corporate innovation in the last 30 years has changed a lot. We had very important successes in the first part, right? Since 1996, we were calling that venture building. Then later on, we had the rise of accelerator. In the year 2000, you almost had no accelerator, and it rise almost to like an incredible amount of accelerator. It wasn't the case 20 years ago. And then when you see on the top, you have agencies, consulting companies started, corporates, they followed the trend. So we had a lot of corporate accelerators that are all closing now. Then we had the incubators. We said, okay, incubators is the next thing. Let's build one. Let's have startups in our house. And so for biotech companies and food tech, actually, it was really great because you need access to labs, facilities, production. Companies follow, they build accelerators and so on. And what I like for the last 5 to 10 years, we have a new model now, which is called venture clienting. It's very popular in Germany and it's spreading out right now, and I will talk about it later on. And this model is purely focused on collaboration. This was supposed to be an introduction, but I'm going to say it just like that. In 2015, the number of innovation that came from startups collaborating with corporate was 1%. Corporates were doing everything themselves. And by 2024, we're talking about 44% of corporates that are working with startups for innovation activities. So it changed from internal development to collaboration with startups. And that was reported in a study by Capgemini and MIT. So we live in the ecosystem economy. Because of exponential technologies like data, mobility, blockchain, AI, cloud solution, 5G, no one has this in-house. And you need to adapt. This year, IBM reported 44% of all businesses will be digital services or experiences, won't be just hardware. So when the hardware needs to invent and please their customers and adapt, they need to collaborate to get access to the latest technologies. And this is why you had an 8-time increase from 2016 to 2019 in collaboration, what we call alliances between companies. 8-time increase. And that's what we're seeing. So what worked 20 years ago is not what worked today. And that's really the key message. So that's why my key message I want to share today is that today you have to have a partnership strategy, an ecosystem strategy. How am I going to innovate, please my customer, retain them? We talked about it today. It's about adapting, evolving your product, and you do that with partnerships. To 2% of business model were ecosystem-based in 2020. This is a study by McKinsey. By 2030, it will be 25% of all businesses worldwide, up to 30%, which is a $70 trillion economy. What it means is you're gonna sell with partners, through partners, instead of going direct. And this is a huge shift in our economy. So we have to think about it in a business model. And CEOs of large corporations reported that the top 5 priorities goes from leadership, decision-making, talent, data, such as cybersecurity, AI, and an ecosystem and partner as a top 5 priority that they have. And I'm going to show 4 examples in the food tech industry that are happening, in the last few years, which are great examples. One can be channel partnerships or marketing partnerships. We had Michelin, for instance. They worked TripAdvisor, everybody know them. But La Fourchette is another company where you can book restaurant, right? And so what they did, Michelin collaborated with TripAdvisor and La Fourchette to actually be able to book Michelin restaurants on that platform, right? So what it is that restaurant, all of a sudden, they don't need to invent their own platform to get booked. They collaborate with Michelin and with La Fourchette, and then they can be findable, premium classes restaurant, they get access to more visibility, the rating of TripAdvisor are coming through that platform, and this is a typical wonderful collaboration because everyone wins with it. Restaurant get more visibility, and Michelin is going to the digital space without inventing their own booking platform. Another great example is Chipotle, which is in a US company. They wanted to they listened to the customer, they said, we want more local farming. So what did they do? Instead of going direct to the local farmers, they collaborated with platform which were interacting with local farmer, right? They said, where are our customers? Local farmer. Instead of going direct, they're going to a partner that collaborate with them, and they decided to give them a grant through this platform, which was called Local Line, and they helped local farmer to access to the platform and then to work with Chipotle. So that was a typical strategic alliances as well. I'm going to go faster here, but Nestlé, for instance, wanted to alternative proteins. So they worked, for instance, with this company called Corbion to have access to the alternative proteins and then distributed worldwide into their new product line where they had a co-marketing effort and co-selling effort. And last but not least, mushrooms is very expensive. You need hardware, you need fermentation. So they got waste products of the famous beer company in Germany called Bitburger and access to their facilities. And in that effort, basically, Bitburger established themselves as an innovator by presenting their collaborative effort with this company. And the Mush Labs, as you can imagine, got a lot of win because they could reduce the cost of production. So that's why the thinking is like, okay, we need to produce, to have manufacturing facilities and so on and so on. But no, instead, who can help me manufacture that? Which facility can I use? Can I use the one of a big corporate or another partner? And then you find a deal to reduce your cost. We're gonna do this in the workshop in a second, but this is what I mean by partnerships. You want to build a partner ecosystem. Okay, so what? What do I want to do? Do I want to increase my digital experience? Maybe that's going to be a tech partnerships and integrated software vendor partnerships, or maybe an OEM partnerships. You integrate yourself into another system. Do you want to increase revenues? Well, maybe you want to have channel partnerships, distributors. Another example I like is Deliveroo, right? Deliveroo, that is delivering food here in Dubai as well. They did a partnerships with Amazon Prime. Why? Because they have the same customer. Amazon Prime usually like to order food. So every time people buy an Amazon Prime membership, they're getting a Deliveroo Prime membership as well. So Amazon is a channel for Deliveroo, and so they can get exposure to Amazon customer, and that's a channel partnership. And then last but not least, strategic alliances. Strategic alliances is the heavy lifting of partnerships. It takes time. There's a lot of governance, and it's long-term partnerships. Example is OpenAI with Apple, Microsoft with OpenAI, you have Ford with Tesla, and in the food tech, were the ones that I just showed you before. So they are just heavy, and that's why I want to share how do we can make them work easier, right? Most of them are failing, and there's many reasons for that. I'm teaching a framework to a lot of startups and incubators about how do you build this ecosystem. Obviously, there's a lot of soft skills involved. There's a lot of studies that have shown that it's about the people working together. But then it's AI in tools. How do you measure like your progress? How do you put that in place? How we make partnerships, this is the topic of today, and then obviously there's how do you find all these partners in many, many ways. But today I'm just going to talk about partnership education and AI and tools. This is data that's coming from basically Berkeley startup, and they found out that startups were not successful because of the amount of money they raised. They were not successful because of the prior experience they had, but instead they had a high diversity, right? If it's a technical solution, you have finance people, design people, product people. You are very well connected with the ecosystem, right? Which is the cycle I showed you at the beginning. And last but not least, very strong relationship with investor, because the investor are making calls for them and open doors, right? And that's why money is not important, but who is the investor that is going to open door for you? Very important. Now, this graph, I like it because this shows you really how do you make a partnership work. You have different level of partnerships. You can just make a transaction. We can debate if it's a partnership or not. And then you can go to channel, which is basically reselling. A bit easier. You need a real reseller contract with a commission, not too complicated. Then we start to make some tech integration. You need to put product alignment. Some people a bit more difficult. Strategic alliances, very difficult. And then you go into the joint venture M&A, and then we're talking about you're merging companies together, and that can have really complicated legal situation and very difficult to implement. So my advice to you, when you start a partnership, companies should start by a transaction. Very simple, they buy your product. They test it, they see if it works. And then when it works, you evolve into different type of partnership, right? So what I've experienced at the beginning, startup was coming to a corporate, and we were talking about joint venture. Very complicated, not easy. Why should we do this? So transaction first, and then you evolve into other type of partnership. In startups yourself, so we don't only have founders here. And I just want to invite you to think about it, and I'm going to put. So the first, group activity, and hopefully we have founders, is thinking about the company. Maybe you can take the example of a company of a friend, and you can describe to the group what type of partnership is the company doing and why. Maybe you can explain what is the current situation, what's going on, before we talk about KPIs in the second one. We just do 5 minutes, and per group, one person can report maybe what it is about. Yeah? So 5 minutes, you can come together and discuss it. Huh?
We'll bring them all on the table.